Today on the Public Square.
Yes, it's wonderful news. For when all these wonderful people get into the swim, it's a wonderful life. For never before has any film contained such a full measure of the joy of living, the drama of living, and above all, the glorious romance that makes this such a wonderful life.
Don't you ever get tired of just reading about things?
Yeah. Hey, what are you doing tonight?
I don't want to get married to anybody, you understand? I want to do what I want to do. And you...
That's next on the Public Square.
Hi, Daddy.
Well, what happened to you?
I want a flower.
Wait, now, where do you think you're going?
Want to give my flower a drink.
All right. No, I'll give Daddy the flower. I'll give it a drink. No, right here.
Look, Daddy. Taste it.
Yeah, all right, give it here. We'll paste this together. There it is. Good as new. Now, give the flower a drink. Now, will you do something for me?
What?
Will you try to get some sleep?
I'm not sleepy. I want to look at my flower.
I know, but you just go to sleep. And then you can dream about it. And it'll be a whole garden.
It will.
It is so great to have you tuned in here to the Public Square. I'm Wayne Shepherd. And by the way, before we go any further, Happy New Year's to all of our Public Square listeners. This is a very special time. It kind of represents a new start, and it does for us as well at the Public Square. As I said, I'm Wayne Shepherd. We've got Dave Zanotti at the table, and Jeff Sanders, and Rob Walgate, and Melanie Elsey. And we're here to just start this new year, and we're going to have some fun, I think, Dave, along the way doing it today.
Well, this could be some shameless plugs for an old movie, Wayne. But as everybody knows, on New Year's Eve, I have a tradition of always watching that ancient film from Frank Capra, his best. It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And different people watch it through different times of the year. I've just picked that New Year's Eve would be the time because, to be honest with you, there's some life lessons in that movie that I think bear telling, and I think this time of year is a real good time to talk about them.
Yeah, I just watched it a few days ago for the umpteenth time as well. It is amazing. There probably isn't any movie that I've watched as much as I've watched It's a Wonderful Life, and I'm sure that's true of a lot of people.
Well, it's interesting because this movie completely fell out of favor in the viewing public, so much to the point that it actually lost its copyright protection.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so it was out there in the free film zone for years. And that's why the television stations, both local and network and cable, began to suddenly pick up It's a Wonderful Life and play it a lot because it was a freebie. They didn't have to pay any licensing rights because it was an obscurity. And so all of a sudden it began to become this I don't know, this
cultic almost.
It's like, and then suddenly some people decided it was time to rebuy that movie, so now it's a different situation today than it was back then. But it has really saturated a generation of the American conscience. So
well, I'm glad we're talking about an old movie, It's a Wonderful Life, today. But this is, after all, a public policy radio program. What are we doing talking about this movie, Dave?
Well, wouldn't it make sense that the way we live our lives and public policy might intersect somewhere? I mean, there might actually be some principles that we can discover in this movie that would govern us better. That might actually make our lives a little better than they are today. I mean, this is really a story of choices.
Well, we're being voted out of business after 25 years. Easy come, easy go.
Here it is. Help wanted. Female.
You still want me to hang around, George?
Yeah, I'll be right down.
Hey, you miss your train. You're a week late for school already. Go on.
What's going on?
Oh, never mind. Don't worry about that. They're putting us out of business. So what? I can get another job. I'm only 55.
56.
Go on. Hey, look, you gave up your boat trip. Now you don't want to miss college too, do you?
George, they voted Potter down. They want to keep it going. You did it, George. You did it. They got one condition. Only one condition.
What's that?
And that's the best part of it. They've appointed George here as executive secretary to take his father's place.
Oh, no, but Uncle Billy is...
You can keep him on, that's all right. As secretary, you can hire anyone you like.
Dr. Cannon, now let's get this thing straight. I'm leaving right now. I'm going to school. This is my last chance. Uncle Billy here, he's your man.
But George, they'll vote with Potter otherwise.
we all know this story. We all love this story, don't we?
Well, we do, and I think we've probably all got a serious number of lines that are memorized, and we kind of span a number of generations here. So Jeff, your kids watch this?
Help you down. Zuzu's Pedals, Zuzu's Pedals. We watch this every year at Christmas time.
I still can't watch the place where where Mr. Gower smacks him up the side of the head.
That hurts too much.
Oh,
yeah,
that's painful.
Aside. You see that blood coming out. That hurts.
Yeah,
that hurts.
That part
hee-haw.
hurts.
Merry Christmas. Oh, brother.
What a great
all
story.
right, you two pixies, out the door, through the window you go.
That is one of the best lines. We use that in our home all the time.
Okay.
We really do.
We might be losing a part of our audience who has not heard this movie or seen the movie. I'm the rarity in the room because I've only seen it once.
Blasphemy.
Okay. Even Alan looked up from the production room. He almost fell off his chair. In fact, he kind of looks like the guy in the in the lighthouse, the guardhouse.
Yeah. Hey, where's your chewing tobacco? Come on, man. I'm about to rip
You've
my
only
clothes
seen it
here.
once?
Last week.
Are you?
Last week.
First time?
I wish the audience could see the faces.
This is
We can't air this.
Well, did you
They'll
like
stone
it?
us.
You barely American person, you that actually has only seen this once.
And I'm going to embarrass my husband because he had not seen it either. Although he had seen bits and pieces when it was on TV, but from beginning to end, we both loved it. It really, if for those who are listening, don't get sucked into this tidal wave of those who have watched it for about a gazillion times. If you've not seen the movie, it is well worth the time to see it.
What'd you like about the film?
I liked the integrity and the genuineness of George's character. One piece that really struck me in the movie was after he had set his hopes and his plans in motion, and he was dead set that he was going to get out and go and be something elsewhere outside of this really small town. His brother came back, he had paid for his brother to go to college. Mm-hmm. His brother came back, and it was their deal that the brother would take over the savings and loans so George could leave and go make his way.
Yeah.
But the brother had met someone, a nice lady. They were already married, I think, at that point in the movie. Surprise, surprise. And he was being offered a job with her father's company, and you could see George's face fall. You could see his disappointment. But the first thing that actually came out of his mouth, if I remember correctly, was he's pulling aside his new sister-in-law and asking her, is this going to be good for him? His first concern was what was best for his brother. Mm-hmm. His first concern was not his own disappointment. And that, to me, spoke volumes.
He feels swindled, but he thinks about his brother first.
Genuinely thinks about his brother. It wasn't a forced or contrived thing. His first genuine thought was for his brother's good.
You know what, Melanie? You are hooked.
Yeah.
You're in the club now. You're going to want to see this every year.
What'd you think of Melanie? What'd you think of Donna Reed's role?
I thought it was just sweet, the way she loved him her entire life. I think there was a scene at the very beginning of the movie.
Remember when she was a little kid?
She was a little girl, and
George
she
Bailey,
even
I love you to the day you die.
And then she waited. All that time that his attention was distracted with so many other things, before he finally came back and really noticed her. She had been patiently waiting, and that became her life as his wife as well.
Now, did you remember the swimming pool scene? The guy right now. Does everybody know?
I know who that is.
You know who he is?
I know who that is from Little Rascals.
That's Alfalfa.
That is Alfalfa. Yeah. Yes.
And that's Beverly Hills High School. And the pool, I think, is still there.
Really?
I saw it on a television newscast a few years ago where they actually parted the floor, and there's the swimming pool underneath the floor.
Can you believe it? Was it 1946 that the
46
film?
It debuted. December 19th, 1946. It was shown in a charity preview at New York City's Globe Theater the night before its official premiere.
All right, but the swimming pool still is there. It still splits in the middle, which is really pretty technically cool for 1946.
When I think about this, I mean, how much could be learned today by the honesty and the integrity of people that are running banks and people in corporate America? I mean,
you had to go there, didn't you, Rob?
I'm sorry, but that's what I mean. I understand I'm a maybe a bit younger than everyone that's watched it.
Does your generation watch this film?
A little bit, not as
corny?
much. No, not that it's too corny. I just don't think. You talked about watching on New Year's Eve with your children. I think it's something.
They've all left me now. I'm alone in the basement with George and myself. But it's okay.
And I think
fondly.
He's one of the two pixies in the basement. Yeah.
But I think it will be embraced. It's one of those things, as you do get a few years older, you start to embrace stuff and watch it more and start to relate to it more.
All right, Alan, hand signal from the production. How many times have you seen It's a Wonderful Life? Oh, he's 5+. 5+, okay.
I thought maybe he didn't have that many fingers and toes.
No, 5+. All right. But speaking of 5+ and counting, all right, now, what else do we learn from It's a Wonderful Life? Obviously, it had a serious impact on Sesame Street.
How so?
Bert and Ernie.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Wow.
Did you never caught that?
I never caught that. Bert the cop?
Bert the cop. Bert and Ernie, they're named for It's a
Ernie
Wonderful
the cab driver.
Life.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
We're having some fun. Believe me, there's a point to be made by all this, and we are going to get to it, I promise, on today's edition of the Public Square, so you stay with us.
Okay, then I'll throw a rock at the old Granville house.
Oh, no, don't. I love that old house.
No, you see, you make a wish and then try and break some glass in. You got to be a pretty good shot nowadays, too.
Oh, no, George, don't. It's full of romance, that old place. I'd like to live in it.
In that place?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't live in it as a ghost. Now watch. There's right in the second floor there, see?
What'd you wish, George?
Well, not just one wish, a whole hatful. Mary, I know what I'm going to do tomorrow and the next day and next year and the year after that. I'm shaking the dust of this crummy little town off my feet, and I'm going to see the world. Italy, Greece, the Parthenon, the Colosseum. And then I'm coming back here and go to college and see what they know. And then I'm going to build things. I'm going to build airfields. I'm going to build skyscrapers 100 stories high. I'm going to build bridges a mile long. Well, you going to throw a rock? Hey, that's pretty good. What'd you wish, Mary?
Buffalo gals, can't you come out tonight? Can't you come out tonight?
We will be right back for more on the Public Square. Ever feel like your voice just doesn't get heard? Politics isn't just for the important people who you see on TV or hear on the news. Politics is for everyone. Don't get discouraged. You're not alone. For almost 30 years, the Roundtable has been helping people get informed and make a difference. The first step is to get the facts. The Roundtable Monthly Update is a great place to start. This important update can be sent to your home every month, helping you know what's going on behind the scenes and how you can leverage your impact. Thousands are reading the Roundtable Update every month. Why not join them? To get your first copy of the Roundtable Update, log on today to aproundtable.org. Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
Can't you come out tonight?
Dance by the light of the moon. What'd you wish when you threw that rock?
Oh, no.
Come on, tell me.
If I told you, it might not come true.
What is it you want, Mary? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down. Hey, that's a pretty good idea. I'll give you the moon, Mary.
I'll take it. Then what?
Well, then you could swallow it, and it'd all dissolve, see? And the moonbeams would shoot out of your fingers and your toes and the ends of your hair. Am I talking too much?
Yes. Why don't you kiss her instead of talking her to death?
How's that?
Why don't you kiss her instead of talking her to death?
Want me to kiss her, huh?
Oh, youth is wasted on the wrong people.
Oh, the things we're learning today on the Public Square about this old movie we've all seen. Even Melanie Elsie has seen it now. It's a Wonderful Life, starring Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed and so many others. And we're kind of looking at this as what we can learn from it, from where we are right now today in this country, Dave.
You were going to say something about Jimmy Stewart, Jeff.
Yeah, well, It's a Wonderful Life. It's about an ordinary guy, right, who does extraordinary things, right? Jimmy Stewart in real life, when World War II broke out, he enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps, the Air Force, as a private. He was already a world-famous actor, and they wanted to make him an officer. He says, no, I'm starting off as a buck private. He later becomes, in World War II, a bomber pilot. I think he flew B-24 Liberators, maybe B-17s, I'm not sure, but they were heavy bombers over multitude bomber missions over Germany, shot at. He put his life on the line.
Very risky job.
And then, much later in life, he retired as a general in the Air Force, long after his movie career was over, or while it was still going on. But here's the thing. The year after he comes home from World War II, he makes this movie about an ordinary guy who does extraordinary things. What was going through his mind while he was making this movie? He could have done anything in life. He didn't even have to join the military.
I think that's the beauty of the setting being the small town.
Bedford Falls.
Bedford Falls is a community of ordinary people. It's not just one ordinary guy in a huge metropolis. It is a community of ordinary people, and that is what struck me at the end of the movie. And for those who haven't seen it, I don't want to give it away, but you will be overwhelmed by the extraordinariness, if that's a word, of the ordinary people.
It's the power of community.
It's just a stunning ending for this movie. It's awesome.
Stewart said this was his favorite movie.
Is that right?
I'm not surprised. And he said that, of course, not when the movie was at its heyday. He said it was his favorite movie. And I think Frank Capra agreed that this was perhaps the favorite movie that he did as well.
Wow.
People say, well, come on, you people. That's so Pollyanna. That's so stereotypical. Wait a minute. What is – yeah, okay, some of that, sure. It's a story. But aren't some of the same conflicts the conflicts we face today?
Yeah.
Decisions that have to be made between people that and real immediate needs that are right in front of us versus the fantasies we'd all like to go chase.
How about the theme of personal sacrifice?
Oh.
The sacrifice that Jimmy Stewart's character, George Bailey, made on behalf of the institution his father started, his family. It was one continual sacrifice after another.
Yeah, and his dad began that for the sake of trying to create a platform whereby people could build a town and be independent of some of those people, Rob, you were talking about earlier, some of the big buck sort of nasty folks. They were trying to do the right thing the right way.
And to be able to see in a timeline because of the flashback and having George go through this Christmas Carol-y experience where what would life be like if he had not lived at all, and all of the good things that would not have happened that would have ended up disastrous. I mean, I know you can remember examples of that in the movie, the little boy that would have been poisoned because of the pharmacist's error.
His own brother who never would have been rescued.
Right.
Had he not saved him?
That's right.
Over and over again, this concept that I'm just an ordinary... And think about all the people who surpassed George, who were so much more important. They were famous. His brother was famous. His brother became a military hero. He was at the White House. His picture was all over the newspaper, and there was old George, Mr. Nobody. And then there was a Henry Wainwright. Remember?
Oh,
Hee-haw.
All
right, was that Wainwright? No, that wasn't Henry. But it was Wainwright, the guy that went off and made all those billions in plastics, and gave George a shot at the deal. And George just stuck with the old savings and loan, and just kept helping those poor people. And then there was Potter.
Oh, it wasn't Lionel Barrymore the best bad guy they could find,
Extraordinary.
Oh,
extraordinary.
Boy.
There was all these famous people, and George kept being the last guy in the line, the last person in the train. I mean, his own doggone wedding day. He had to give up all of his money to save the savings and loan. He ended up spending his honeymoon in a broken down, abandoned house with Bert and Ernie outside the door singing
liver pills.
All right? I mean, you think about it. This guy was this downtrodden, end of the line, never a hero, never caught the break, never. He was just plain, Melanie. He was ordinary.
But the Nevers that you just mentioned, he was much more than that, because when the money was lost was it his uncle?
Uncle Billy.
Okay, his uncle lost a ton,
$8,000,
which back then was a much larger than what we would consider $8,000 to be today. George never, in Potter's presence, blamed his uncle.
He never threw Uncle Billy under the bus.
He didn't. He took it. This was my fault. This is something that I did. Even when he was by himself talking to the angel, I think I did this. He never passed the buck, even when the buck could have been passed, because it really wasn't his fault.
And he reached the point of total despair. He reached the point of saying, everything I've done, every sacrifice I've made, I've basically been abused. I've been left behind, and now in this horrific twist of fate, my drunken uncle, my father's brother, has tanked our company. Back when my wife and I had Mama Dollar and Papa Dollar, we gave up everything we had to keep this alive. And now the injustice of it all, we're all going to, and he's thinking, I'm going to jump off this bridge because I'm better off dead. I'm worth more to my wife and family dead than alive.
We were talking about the power of the ordinary, and I've heard you use this quotation before from G.K. Chesterton, Dave. Can you bring that one up for me about, he spoke to this ordinariness, right?
He said there's nothing more extraordinary than an ordinary man, an ordinary woman raising their ordinary children in a family.
Think about that.
And you think about the realities of the gospel coming to earth in a manger, into very ordinary people. Who were the very first people who got the announcement? Oh, that went straight to CNN, right? And all the media elites, and they held a big seminar, and they all made tons of money off the announcement of the birth of Christ.
Went to Caesar and it went to all the great Greek philosophers out there, didn't it?
Still not. So, wait.
Can I give the answer?
Yeah.
Can I give the answer, teacher?
Go ahead, Wayne.
It was made to the shepherds. All right.
And he claims the family connection ever since.
That's right.
All time in history.
We have been blessed ever since.
We still have one here, still proclaiming. It came to the night shift, to the folks in the middle of the field, to the ordinary people.
I think about the ordinary people, and sometimes of what all of us, and I'm not speaking of all of us around the table, I'm speaking of all of us listening and around the country. It's tough to be ordinary when we want to drive the best SUV and live in the biggest house and have the nicest clothes. We get lost in that illusion many times for no reason.
And we get lost in the concept of big. You know, there's all these big celebrities and all these big people and all this money, and we're just little, we're just nothing, we're just ropes on the Goodyear blimp at best, all right? We're just nobodies from nowhere, and we don't matter. But, you know, at the end of George's life, there was a treasure that was beyond imagination, because for his entire life he had built one thing consistently, and that was the integrity of relationships. Mm-hmm. He never treated anybody as smaller than him. Mm-hmm. He always treated people like they were made in the image of God, like they mattered.
Love your neighbor.
He loved his neighbor, and in the end, when suicide was his only option, and then the angel helped him understand, oh no, you've made a difference. You did matter. He goes back willing to face all the consequences, and that wonderful scene that we all know so much, and even Saturday Night Live has parodied ad infinitum. Yeah. In the end, what do we discover in the book? What does it say? That there's no man is broke, no man's impoverished who has friends. The wonder, the beauty of the contextual integrity of friendship in community was a greater treasure than all the wealth the world could bring. He was the luckiest man on earth.
What do you say? No, Tom, you have to stick to your original agreement. Now, give us 60 days on this.
Okay, Randall.
Are you going to Potter's?
Better to get half than nothing.
That's what
Tom! Randall, wait a minute. Now, listen to me. I beg of you not to do this thing. If Potter gets a hold of this building and alone, there'll never be another decent house built in this town. He's already got charge of the bank, he's got the bus line, he got the department stores, and now he's after us. Why? Well, it's very simple, because we're cutting in on his business, that's why. And because he wants to keep you living in his slums and paying the kind of rent he decides. Joe, you had one of those Potter houses, didn't you? Well, have you forgotten? Have you forgotten what he charged you for that broken-down shack? Here, Ed, you remember last year when things weren't going so well and you couldn't make your payments? Well, you didn't lose your house, did you? You think Potter would have let you keep it? Can't you understand what's happening here? Don't you see what's happening? Potter isn't selling, Potter's buying. And why? Because we're panicky and he's not, that's why. He's picking up some bargain. Now, we can get through this thing all right. We've got to stick together, though. We've got to have faith in each other.
But my husband hasn't worked in over a year, and I need money.
How am I going to live until the bank opens?
I got doctor bills to pay. I need cash.
I can't keep Americans on faith. I've got to have...
How much do you need?
Hey! I got $2,000. Here's $2,000. This will movie opens. All right, Tom, how much do you need?
$242.
No, Tom, just enough to tide you over until the bank.
I'll take $242.
There you are.
That'll close my account.
Your account's still here. That's a loan. Okay. All right, Ed.
Well, I got $300 here, George.
All right, now, Ed, what'll it take until the bank opens? What do you need?
Well, I suppose $20?
$20. Now you're talking. Thanks, Ed. That's fine. All right, now, Miss Thompson, how much do you want?
But it's your own money,
Now,
George.
never mind about that. How much do you want now?
I can get along with 20, all right.
$20, fine.
And I'll sign the paper.
You don't have to sign anything. I know you. You pay when you can. That's okay. All right, Miss Davis.
Could I have $17.50?
That's your heart. Of course you can have it. You got 50 cents. There we go. 7.
We're going to make it, George.
6.
They'll never close us up today.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We'll be right back for more on the Public Square.
Continuing to air one of our favorite Public Square conversations about the classic film, It's a Wonderful Life. And when we first recorded this program, there was a news story in the headlines at that time that I think is still worth thinking about today. So we'll get to that in a moment. But first, here's another clip from the film.
Please help me, Mr. Potter. Help me, won't you, please? Can't you see what it means to my family? I'll pay any sort of a bonus on the loan, any interest. If you still want the building and loan, I'm...
George, could it possibly be there's a slight discrepancy in the books?
No, sir, there's nothing wrong with the books. I've just misplaced $8,000. I can't find it anywhere.
You misplaced $8,000?
Yes, sir.
Have you notified the police?
No, sir, I didn't want the publicity. Harry's homecoming tomorrow.
They're going to believe that, well. What have you been doing, George? Playing the market with the company's money?
No, sir, I haven't.
Oh, is it a woman, then? You know, it's all over town that you've been giving money to Violet Bick. What? Not that it makes any difference to me, but why do you come to me? Why don't you go to Sam Wainwright and ask him for the money?
I can't get a hold of him. He's in Europe.
Well, what about all your other friends?
Well, they don't have that kind of money, Mr. Potter. You know that. You're the only one in town that can help me.
I've suddenly become quite important. Well, what kind of security would I have, George? You got any stocks?
No, sir.
Bonds? Real estate? Collateral of any kind?
I have some life insurance. $15,000 policy.
Yes, how much is your equity in it?
$500.
$500? And you asked me to lend you $8,000. Look at you. Miserable little clerk crawling in here on your hands and knees and begging for help. No securities, no stocks, no bonds, nothing but a miserable little $500 equity in a life insurance policy. You're worth more dead than alive. Why don't you go to the riffraff you love so much and ask them to let you have $8,000? You know why? Because they'd run you out of town on a rail. But I tell you what I'm going to do for you, George. Since the state examiner is still here, as a stockholder of the building and loan, I'm going to swear out a warrant for your arrest. Misappropriation of funds, manipulation, malfeasance. All right, George, go ahead. Go. You can't hide in a little town like this. Bill, this is Potter.
Well, it's holiday time, and we're having some fun in the public square today, but there's a point to be made as well, and we're having this conversation about the old movie, It's a Wonderful Life, produced and directed by Frank Capra, starring Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed. We've all seen it. Even Melanie Elsie now has seen the movie, so I think, Melanie, you may have been the last person in America to see the movie.
The last American household.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think so. I am quite sure someone listening is just like me.
But we're learning what we can from the movie today here, and as we always try to do in the public square, we try to walk away with some lessons learned. So, Dave, where are we going to go next with this one?
Well, every good story needs a great bad guy, and we've certainly got a great bad guy in Lionel Barrymore being
old Mr. Potter. Yep.
Mr. Potter, and if George had in fact not been around, Bedford Falls would have become
Potterville.
which is an interesting concept because a lot of times many people who don't get fame or wealth or notoriety, who just keep showing up day after day, doing the same things over and over again. They're in early childhood ed centers and daycare centers, taking care of somebody else's kids, trying to share with them the love of Christ. Nobody knows who they are.
They're changing tires and they're fixing vehicles sometimes for people who can't even pay.
They're doing all kinds of jobs. They're at home. They're alone. They're infirmed. There's all or some people that are slugging away against the giant that seems to never move. All these little people, all of us, the great amounts of us who never get to the top, never have our 15 minutes of fame, never have the wealth of this world, who feel like if we weren't here, it would not have mattered at all. There will be a day when we will all see that it did matter. Because if you take all those people out of the equation, Wayne, then you do have Pottersville. You have Pottersville over and over and over again.
And all is lost. Yeah.
We got a really, really bad guy in Potter who really wanted to control everything just because of his own dictates. And, it was a banking situation. Well, of all things, I happened to find a story in the news not so long ago that reminded me of the practical realities of It's a Wonderful Life. Happened out in Oklahoma. Now, there was a bank out in Oklahoma. Now, this is a private corporation. Bank in Oklahoma that actually has a scripture verse on its website, and they actually had Christmas decorations in the bank.
No,
they had, and they were religious symbols in the bank, and a Bible verse on their website. Well, it seems that the auditors came in. Does this sound like the movie? The auditors came in and decided that all that stuff had to go. Because the auditors from the Federal Reserve System said, "Oh, you don't know about Clause B in this whole thing about being a bank in America. And Clause B says you're not allowed to have anything that would be discriminatory about your bank." And these clearly Christian Christmas Bible verse, well, so people could feel discriminated against.
No, wait a minute.
About your bank.
You're not talking about a movie now. You're talking about reality.
The United States of America, in this day, in this time, in this place, this is current news. And the Federal Reserve auditors came in and told that bank, you will take those scripture verses off your website. You will remove those crosses and Christmas decorations because you are not permitted in this country to display those things because they are by their nature discriminatory. And banks under United States law can't discriminate. This happened in America. Talk about Mr. Potter having relatives. All right. Did anybody else see this story?
His relatives are in the Federal Reserve.
I mean, they're right there. They wheeled right in.
I never saw it. It's terribly underreported. But once I did read this, since you sent it to me, with the caveat, Jeffy, don't have a stroke when you read this. I did have a stroke. Thank you for preparing me, by the way. It was right after church. I was happy, filled with Merry Christmas cheer, and then I read this thing. But, it reminds me of an old saying I heard, with government shekels come shackles. And the moment you start allowing the government to get its hooks in you through money, then they have their right to own you in various sorts of ways. And that's what they were doing here. They're pulling their weight and saying, we pretty much own these banks.
I think we've talked in previous broadcasts about the difference between first principles and the living, breathing Constitution. This is like Pottersville was the epitome of what life would be like under a living, breathing Constitution where things change for the worse.
And the powerful people's opinions dictate reality always.
Right.
Yeah. Is this constitutional? I mean, was the Federal Reserve auditor coming in telling the private corporation how they will govern themselves, what they can have on the wall? Is that in the Constitution?
Absolutely not. In fact, even the thread that they're trying to pull out from the Constitution, they're forgetting the free exercise thereof clause in the First Amendment.
How convenient.
Where's the authority for the Federal Reserve? Did they have any authority? I mean, were these people just making it up? What happened here?
I don't know. This is Perkins, Oklahoma. It's a small town, privately owned bank. The Federal Reserve has regulations that banks must operate under. So are we saying the Federal Reserve itself has no authority to regulate banks? Is that the question?
Well, but why would the Federal Reserve auditors consider the display of Christmas as discriminatory?
Because they are stretching what's already been stretched. They are, you can't discriminate in who you grant a loan to, but that's very different than displaying something on the wall or the way you might greet somebody or putting a phrase on your website. That's not discriminating in how you disseminate funds.
Wayne, for purposes of public policy, what they're saying is that the confession of anything that has to do with the gospel or the Bible is discriminatory, which in essence they're saying is it's illegal.
People make the decision to walk through those doors of that bank. If they don't want to do business there, they don't have to do business. Just like I make the decision if I want to shop at a store or eat at a restaurant. It's their practices. And if we're taking it to banks, where is it going to? I mean, we've all went into restaurants where the sign out front has maybe had a scripture verse or had something patriotic or in some way different.
Where is it going to end? Well, okay.
So in other words, if it's discriminatory for a bank to not use, then they'd be discriminatory for anybody, right?
Yeah, but what about this? So the Fed, because it practically owns the bank, they can dictate what's in the bank. Wait a minute, I get my mortgage from that bank. So does the Fed, by extension through the bank, it owns me, can tell me what I can do or not do in my own home? What signs I can put up on my yard? You see what I'm saying?
Well, here's my question about discriminatory. I guess here's my question. If the bank had decided to put the scripture verse up over the front door on their website and inside the building that simply said, "Thou shalt not steal," would that have been illegal?
For the Federal Reserve, it would.
It would offend some politicians.
Well, this conversation today has taken a turn from an innocent movie to the reality of what we're up against in our country today. We'll continue it, asking the question, so what? So what does all this mean? We'll answer that question coming up on The Public Square.
We'll be right back for more on The Public Square.
Clarence! Get me back! Get me back! I don't care what happens to me! Get me back to my wife and kids! Help me, Clarence, please! Please! I want to live again! I want to live again! I want to live again! Please, God, let me live again.
Well, once again, it is great to have you with us on the Public Square today. Let me reset the table. Dave Zanotti, Jeff Sanders, Rob Walgate, Melanie Elsey, and I'm Wayne Shepherd. And we started out talking about It's a Wonderful Life, this iconic American movie that is so innocent and yet teaches such powerful lessons. And somehow we got on to what's really happening in America. Dave, you want to pick it up from there?
Well, we've talked about this bank in Oklahoma that was attacked by regulators from the Federal Reserve who said they had to remove their scripture verses from their website. The bank did, as well as their Christmas decorations and crosses and any religious symbols, because the auditors at the Federal Reserve, citing some obscure federal regulation, not legislated through Congress, not in the Constitution or the Declaration of the Bill of Rights, some mandate of a government agency, some executive sort of paperwork decision, said that Christian expression from that bank was in fact discriminatory. Now, the story came up quickly and disappeared quickly because as soon as the Fed got opposition, and opposition from Oklahoma, thank God for our wonderful friends in Oklahoma, because they got upset about this in a hurry, the Fed backed off. But I want to tell you something. There's something frighteningly prescient about this. You see, this came out of an administrative code, out of administrative decisions. And Wayne, Melanie's taught me this over the years. We've got the U.S. Constitution and you've got the United States Code. All right, there's a difference there. All right, You've got state constitutions and then you have state codes or laws. There's a difference. But you have state constitutions, you have state laws, and you have administrative code. There's three realms of law, if you will. All right. The Constitution being the civil compact, we all agree by the rules of the board. Then you've got the code that we operate, laws that are passed by our elected officials. But administrative codes are not passed by elected officials. They are handed off to bureaucrats, and they make rules that have the power of law and penalties attended with them. This was an administrative procedure inside the Federal Reserve System that told a bank, you have forfeited your First Amendment rights as people and as a corporation. You have no rights. That if we determine your expression is discriminatory, and that discriminatory had to do with religious faith, so there's two issues here. One is the insanity of their ruling based upon the First Amendment, and the second is the power that they believe they have as bureaucrats, not elected officials, not quoting a law or the Constitution, quoting their memos.
That is such a gross distortion of the separation of powers between the three branches of government. And we see it time and time again across the policy spectrum. In the health care legislation, there are over 800 references to the secretary shall do this, and this administrative function, develop these regulations, put this mechanism into place.
Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Correct. So you've got the legislative branch basically handing off their authority in spades to their agencies.
The potential for 800 more Mr. Potters in this world.
Incredible.
Can you imagine if the Federal Health Administration now decides that religious symbols are discriminatory like the Federal Reserve has decided they're discriminatory? So guess what?
Goodbye Catholic and Baptist
hospitals. Goodbye Catholic and
Jewish
Baptist
hospitals.
and Jewish and Methodist hospitals. Bye-bye. You can't do that. There's no right of conscience. There's no right of expression. You get those symbols off the walls. You can't have religious people in here working. Wait a minute. Chaplains? Are you sure?
Military chaplains. Goodbye chaplain, U.S. Senate and the House.
So there's multiple questions here. Religious liberty is a question, free expression, but then you also have power, separation of powers. This is a terrifying story that people miss because it's exactly what can happen. Exactly what can happen when the administrative branch takes control outside the constitutional boundaries. Our liberties are at risk, and you can take a beautiful bank like that bank in Oklahoma, and Wayne, you can turn it into Pottersville with a single piece of paper.
Well, let's take a look at what did happen there and why did it happen. Why did they reverse themselves?
Public opinion. Members of Congress from Oklahoma got upset. They started contacting the Federal Reserve and saying, what are you doing?
And that's proof
people got
that they
involved.
had no statutory authority. I mean, that's when you have these regulators switching out their policies, that proves the lack of legitimacy in the policy.
Well, and Wayne, to your point, the Berts, the Ernies, the Uncle Billies, and Mr. Gowers all got involved and said, excuse me, this is Bedford Falls. This is not Pottersville. You're not bringing that stuff here.
The so-called ordinary people.
The ordinary people.
Right.
But see, I'll tell you, Wayne, what concerns me. All right, this was over an administrative piece, and this was something that was pretty far out there. The concern that I have is all the secret, latent authority that's being transferred from a health care bill that nobody has read, transferred to a bureaucracy that has no rules and regulations. They can make it up as they go along. And we weren't talking here about, here we were talking about a Bible verse on a website. When we get into the healthcare administration, you're talking about somebody's life. And an administrative code that gets a doctrine that just gets blasted out there. And the next thing you know, people are sick. People are dying. And where's Uncle Billy going to be then? Where's Mr. Gower going to be then? If we give them the power, what are they going to do with it? And have we made a mistake?
We've got a couple of minutes left, and this is our first program of the new year. Now, we don't know where we ended last year. It's too soon to get all the numbers, but we are just urging our listeners to get behind. This is a listener-supported broadcast, but more importantly, this is a listener-supported organization, the American Policy Roundtable.
Wayne, at the end of every year for us, it's sort of, or the beginning of every year as well, it's sort of like that last scene in It's a Wonderful Life. Because I will tell you flat out, and Rob's sitting here with a big smile on his face, every dollar that we get, we give out, we give back. Because it's never been about us. All right. It's been about getting the word out. So everything people give and have for 30 years, we give back out to reach more people, to tell these stories of history, to tell the truth as best we can understand it for the good of the country, to keep America from becoming Pottersville. And we can't do it without the ordinary folks, our neighbors just like us. If we don't all do it together, this old savings alone ain't going to make it, friend.
Mm-hmm. Rob, you get the final word today.
Well, we appreciate all the listeners that are listening, and we appreciate the story of the movie that we talked about, It's a Wonderful Life. And the thing is, it's up to all of us to love our neighbors and to live out the Word of God, because our actions are going to speak for a lot longer and a lot louder than our words ever will.
Help us start off this new year right. If you'd like to support the work of the American Policy Roundtable, you can do that securely, even right now, online at aproundtable.org. Hey, Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks to our panel, and thanks to our listeners for tuning in today.
That's a Christmas present from a very dear friend of mine.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right. Attaboy, Clarence.
Well, I'm so glad you joined us for such a unique program today here in the Public Square. It's a Wonderful Life. I'm Wayne Shepherd, back with Dave Zanotti and our panel here that joins us each week in the Public Square. Dave, this program today was a bit different, but it speaks to the creativity that we put into this broadcast.
Wayne, what's happening here on the Public Square is a lot of fun. And it's also a lot of pressure. It's a little bit scary, too. You think about all the different kinds of radio programming that you hear on the Public Square, starting with these sort of radio documentaries or Hollywood moments, like the special New Year's program on It's a Wonderful Life. We have so much fun doing that. We've had an incredibly popular program on the Charlie Brown Christmas special for years. There are special programs on Memorial Day, on the 4th of July. Then there's our live events that we actually conduct around the country. There are huge productions, such programs like Christmas in America and others. And people actually think that perhaps this is a radio corporation that maybe has millions of dollars of resources and maybe a staff of 20 or 30 people. And the fact of the matter is, nothing could be farther from the truth. We don't keep all of our locations highly publicly exposed for lots of reasons, and some of them include security. But I've got to tell you, this is a very decentralized organization. Part of the model of what we do is something that we watched the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association do through the 60s and 70s and 80s, in that they had a very decentralized model, and their key people were from different spots in the country, and they found a way to come together on major projects. Well, we come together on technology with folks from all over the country. I think it would stun people to find out that this broadcast only has one handful of employees dedicated to actually bringing this program to you, the listener. And it would...
it's a short handful, actually.
And on top of that, this is done on far less than $1 million. So you say, wow, I can't believe that. Somebody said to me the other day, well, surely you have thousands and thousands of people participating with you financially based on Christmas in America alone. The guy was just raving about the program and the changed lives and the beauty, and saying this is better than what I see on NBC and NPR. And he just assumed that there was millions of dollars and thousands of people behind it. But I don't know, Wayne. Was he right?
No, he's not. But we do have a couple of people around the table, 3 actually, along with the 2 of us here today. We've got Jeff Sanders here, Rob Wolgate, and Melanie Elsey. So let me ask you guys, I mean, let me put it this way. When people think of a public policy program, Rob, they think of a dry conversational program. We are hopefully anything but dry and conversational.
We try and stay towards the edge, Wayne. We try and ask tough questions, and we try to look at everything from a biblical worldview. And we want to talk about it together. We don't want to lecture people, and we don't want to be lectured. We want to have a conversation, and we want to talk to people about, in that conversation, about how to become involved in making a difference.
We also don't have anything that's scripted. We don't come in here with a planned script of, okay, you say this, then you say that, and you say this, which explains some of our more off-the-cuff statements.
We don't always get the topic until the day of.
Right, or off-the-wall moments.
And it also explains what is left on the editing room floor, so to speak, as well.
And we also don't want to be an echo chamber where, okay, everybody has the same thought. We don't practice groupthink here. We actually do have differences of opinion.
We do, and we don't come into these roles to try and be entertainers. We don't want to entertain you while you're listening. That's not our job. We're all in this together.
See, this is real radio. It's not just talk radio, Wayne. It's walk radio. And we're all just real people trying to do it, but we are trying to do it with a creative difference. We're trying to do things that haven't been done on radio for a long time, so that folks that are listening can take the links of this broadcast, share this with a friend, and sort of not be ashamed of the quality or the design or the creativity that they've got new tools to start new conversations.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking about the fact that we talk about some of the most important things that are facing our nation. These are weighty issues of public policy, but we also do it in a way that hopefully engages. I'm going to use the word inspires people to get involved in the process.
And at the same time, I'm hoping that we help people put things in perspective. You know, a biblical perspective, a constitutional perspective. You know, let's think about things in ways that are very much a manner that we're not accustomed to. Let's open up our minds a little bit.
Wayne, sometimes we're going to be raw because while we are all fully committed, and in essence you would say full-time professionals, I would prefer to say full-time missionaries in the field of public policy, and we have hundreds of years of combined experience, we don't do this based upon PhDs. We don't do it based upon wealth. We don't do it based upon stature or standing or pedigree. We do this in pursuit of the truth, which means we're not always going to get it right. We're going to mess up. But one thing I can tell you for sure, we're always going to try to get to that creative edge to bring new equipment, new tools, new thoughts, new visions, new dreams to people to start spiritual conversations as they relate to the world in which we live, of loving our neighbor and the realm of public policy. So we're going to stay on that edge. And part of why I wanted to talk about this for a minute is just to encourage people early in this year to consider what a premium investment it is to be a contributor to the public square. Everybody around this table started as a volunteer. Every one of them around this table is a donor. Everyone on our staff gives, and there's just a handful of us, so we've got to have more people. If you're listening to this broadcast, if you're finding it a helpful tool, if you've tested it and tried it and found it to be true, I'm going to ask you to consider what a difference you would make and an encouragement you would be to simply become a regular participant in helping cover the costs and expand the reach of this broadcast.
And I remind you that your gifts are tax deductible. We all kind of come up to the last couple of days of the year and think, now, what do I have here that I could pass on to someone else that's going to make a difference? We would sure appreciate your support here at the American Policy Roundtable. And those gifts are tax deductible. So, Jeff, as long as we have that opportunity, let's take advantage of that. Huh?
Amen. You never know what's going to happen when you invest like this in the future. And our country and many people around this country are certainly in some desperate situations, and we need all the help we can get to effect some positive change throughout our nation.
And Wayne, for people who honestly can't give, boy, we're not going to argue with you, but I'll tell you one thing you can do. Would you pray that God would speak to the heart of someone who can give and that they would open their heart and participate? Now, we're not calling out because we're desperate. We're calling out because America's desperate. See, our lives are already given over. We know what's ahead for us. We're not expecting some giant golden parachute exit strategy here, friends, so we want your money so we can all go on vacation, because that's just not what we do. We're talking about helping a desperate nation. And we may not be the best examples in the world. We may not be the best radio broadcasts in the world, but I'll tell you one thing. You're not going to find a group of people more committed who want to try to continue to do this in a creative way that will bring joy, excitement, and encouragement to the nation. So we really, truly do need your help, and we're not afraid to ask for it. Anything you do, as often as you can, brings us tremendous encouragement. Rob, I know you watch the numbers, that when they go up as far as the number of people participating, we all find that as a great cause to celebrate.
It provides encouragement to the entire team because we know what we're doing here. The calling that we're in together with the listeners and the supporters is making a difference.
Well, Wayne, if you ever wanted to be a part of the actual ending of It's a Wonderful Life in the real world, now's the time to bring that basket in with all the goodies that you've got and anything you can. Empty the jukebox, do whatever it takes to come in and join along, because everything you give is helping to save a nation.
Let's recreate that scene, at the end of A Wonderful Life. All right. You can do it through our website. You can give securely there at aproundtable.org. You can do it by sending a check. You'll find the address online at the website. You can call us, 1-800-522-VOTE. Either way you choose, we'll say thank you here at the end of one year and the start of another. So thank you from all of us at the American Policy Roundtable. And as always, thank you for listening to The Public Square.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.